welcome to this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Details on Canada's $19 billion Safe Restart Agreement are now coming to light after a major announcement here in Thunder Bay from Canada's Health Minister. Patty Hajdu hosted a news conference this week outlining nearly $4.3 billion to boost contact tracing and testing capacity across the country. Corey Nordstrom has more.
2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister announced $19 billion towards a Safe Restart Agreement between the federal, provincial and territorial governments of Canada. Now, Health Minister Patty Hajdu clarifies where some of that money will be going.
$4.28 billion of the Safe Restart will go to expand testing and contact tracing capacity and the associated data management and information systems.
Those funds will be divided into 3 parts and on a per capita basis to each province and territory, allowing for 200,000 COVID-19 tests to be conducted per day.
Rapid testing allows for the ability to do the rapid contact tracing, and that is really critical to containing the virus, making sure that people have the information they need to prevent the further spread to their loved ones.
The data management system from Public Health Ontario is supposed to be in place in a week's time, says the federal health minister, and the district's medical officer of health says it can greatly improve their abilities at the Thunder Bay Health Unit.
It's much more user-friendly. It'll actually help us quickly get the information into the system in a much easier way. It'll help us manage outbreaks where we link cases and contacts. It'll help us do our appropriate documentation.
Hajdu says an updated data management system is a long time coming and should help in the event of another similar health scare down the road.
Things like data management systems that are national, that are coordinated, that actually get the data to people they need in a timely fashion just don't exist. And so we've been investing ever since, but this is about making sure that we can fill those gaps to protect us for potentially future outbreaks that may be coming.
The day's announcement accounted for less than a quarter of the $19 billion for the Safe Restart Agreement. While Hajdu couldn't specify where the rest of that fund would be going, she did say that a big chunk would be towards sick pay, with childcare and an overall strengthening of the healthcare system also garnering added attention. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Dr. Janet DeMille says she's happy with what she's seen in the short time the indoor mask mandate has been in effect. Enacted last month by the District Health Unit, the direction advised for masks to be worn for indoor public spaces by all who can. The mandate is education-based, looking to promote the benefits wearing a mask can have on lowering the possible spread of COVID-19. DeMille says in order for the directive to work, the public will have to buy in despite the lack of enforcement.
A high percentage of the population is wearing masks, especially in those crowded spaces or spaces that could be crowded. That can reduce the transmission of COVID-19. And if we're all consistently doing that, we could have lower rates of spread of the virus, which is really important.
DeMille says for businesses that want to, they can refuse entry to those not wearing masks, but she's also asking people not to judge those who are exempt from wearing masks because of health reasons. Meanwhile, the Northwestern Health Unit, which serves the Rainy River and Kenora districts, announced its own indoor mask mandate on Tuesday. The directive will be very similar to the one Thunder Bay imposed, with an educational focus rather than strict enforcement. The mandate will come into effect on August 17th. Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kit Young-Hoon, says it will give businesses the time to create their own plan and find the appropriate resources. She explains why now is a good time to make the decision.
In general, the public is interested in this type of policy, that there is general public support. And also that I think a key part is that it's stage 3. We want to make sure we stay in stage 3 and that businesses and organizations and social services and educational services can stay open.
Meanwhile, in an effort not to ostracize those who test positive for the virus in smaller towns, the NWHU is now grouping certain communities together for the COVID-19 information page. Although some people in that catchment area say the changes make knowing the risk in each community more confusing. Regional hospital officials continue their efforts to ramp up surgeries here in Thunder Bay, and they're aiming to be back at 100% by the fall. The hospital had been conducting essential surgeries throughout the pandemic, but elective and non-urgent procedures only began to slowly restart in early May. Corey Nordstrom has more.
The COVID-19 situation caused surgery capacity at Thunder Bay's regional hospital to dip to just 30% at the height of the pandemic. Now that number is up to 70. Dr. Peter Voros is the Executive Vice President of Inpatient Care. He says they are putting in the extra effort to eat away at the long surgical wait times.
As we're ramping up to that 100%, the goal hopefully is to get us above that 110, 115, maybe even 120 by doing surgeries later into the evening and on the weekends as well, when we have staff and physicians available to be able to do it.
Voros expects the hospital's surgery capacity to reach 100% by early fall, but wait times remain higher than normal for the time being. Before the pandemic, surgeries usually took over 6 months to be completed.
Right now, we're probably at about 7 or 8 months, but that's really with us anticipating that there are surgeries out there that we don't know need to happen yet. Because physicians' offices weren't functioning fully during pandemic, we believe there are referrals out there that are coming that we don't have yet. So with those coming, that 7 to 8 months wait could be a 12 to 18 months wait.
And the hospital is getting creative in order to cut wait times, looking at more overnight stays to free up beds where possible, and the creation of a space designated for short stays. They also will utilize some of their regional supports where possible.
Our regional orthopedics program has 4 surgical sites in Fort Frances, Kenora, Dryden, and Thunder Bay. Their operating rooms are not quite as busy as ours, so we are moving a larger portion of our orthopedic surgeries into the region in order to try to help clear that backlog and leave extra space here for other surgeries.
Corey Nordstrom, TBC News.
Police in Dryden are investigating a serious assault which took place on Tuesday. Officers responded to a 911 call where an elderly person sustained injuries from 2 individuals in their home. One suspect has been arrested and the other is currently at large. Charges have already been laid, but no details about the charges have been released. Meanwhile, the victim remains in hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The death of a 67-year-old Red Lake man has now been confirmed as a bear attack. Late last month, OPP were advised of an overdue male who had gone berry picking. Officers later located the man deceased with a black bear in the vicinity of the body. The bear was dispatched and a post-mortem was carried out in Toronto, where officials determined the cause of death was consistent with a bear attack. There's now conflict brewing in Fort Frances between a group of residents and the operators of a street outreach facility, as well as the small tent city that has cropped up nearby. Residents say they're concerned with the increase in discarded needles and drug use, while the facility contends they're offering a safe place for vulnerable members of the community. Adam Riley has more.
In Fort Frances, there are several signs posted on the windows of the former train station, each with different statements, but all carry the same message. Where are we supposed to go? Next door to the station is a small tent city, which has become the center of controversy between neighbors and the Fort Frances Family Center, which has been operating for just over a year. Diane Casper is one of the tenters. She says she is trying to get her life back on track and feels she knows the cause of part of the issue.
I think it's the needles, and I think there's a little bit of prejudice because of us being addicts and using. Some do in the open, but that doesn't mean all of us are doing that. Some have respect, like myself and others, but I think that is primary.
On several houses opposite to the site are no trespassing signs, which neighbors like Tammy Brunel say is part of the problem, adding she doesn't feel safe anymore. She stresses she doesn't blame the homeless, but she does feel the operators of the family center didn't properly administer the site.
Did they give them any guidelines, any expectations, any consequences to follow at all? Like, did they say, if we find that you're shooting up drugs here, we're going to have to ask you to leave? If we find that you're dancing naked in broad daylight, we're going to have to ask you to leave.
Monica Seuss founded the Family Center. She feels the residents are unfairly targeting those less fortunate and told the neighbors if there are problems to contact police or the health unit.
I just run a drop-in center which gives out soup, sandwiches, cold water, 365 days of the year. And during COVID, when people have no place else to set their tents, I have let them set up tents here, and that's all we do.
Mayor June Call says she understands the frustration of residents and laments that the town is limited in its options and is not in favor of considering an anti-loitering bylaw similar to the one which was proposed and voted down in Kenora last month.
The hard part about it is it's not a town issue, it's a police issue, and it's a health unit issue, and it's a social services issue. And as you know, we don't do those kinds of things. We look after sewer and water and roads, et cetera, and we don't have a budget line to help with the drug issue or the homeless.
Call adds she has joined a homelessness committee to see if there is anything that can be done from the town's perspective going forward. Adam Riley, TBT News.
As the price of gold climbs near $2,000 an ounce, Thunder Bay and the rest of northwestern Ontario seem poised to benefit. Several new gold mines have been in the works over the past few years, and the record gold price could fast-track those plans, according to the CEDC. Cole Promain has more.
As of Tuesday afternoon, the price of gold was listed at $1,953 US an ounce. As a result, the Community Economic Development Commission is now preparing for a spike in the area's mining industry. Currently, there are 4 active gold mines in the region, and CEDC Mining Services Manager John Mason says in the next few years there could be a handful of new mines, including Pure Gold, which should be up and running in Red Lake by December.
We're also going to see other new projects that are very close. The Treasury Metals project east of Dryden on their Goliath deposit, and the Hard Rock project at Geraldton that Greenstone Gold, joint venture with Centerra and Premier, have. Those are all poised and ready to produce as well, and that's going to add significant ounces.
In addition to these 2 new gold mines in northwestern Ontario, Mason says that he wouldn't be surprised to see the mining industry in the north part of the province grow even further, and should things ramp up, they already have plans in place.
It's one of the reasons we've actually started a mining readiness strategy out of CEDC. We've got an RFP on the street right now to be, to your point, prepared and ready. The infrastructure, the workforce side, what's needed. So to give you an idea of what's queued up and ready to go, I would say within the next 5 years we could have 3, if not 4, new gold mines in production, including Pure Gold.
Mason also says that he would not be surprised to see some former mining operations begin to reopen as well. Cole Promain, TBT News.
When we come back, the investigation into a derailment which occurred near Emo presents its findings. Cause of February's train derailment just outside the town of Emo has been determined by the Transportation Board of Canada. The incident caused the spill of a large amount of crude oil. Corey Nordstrom has details.
The TSB investigation concluded that a phenomenon called ice jacking led to the CN rail crash. It results from snow clearing activities that can push snow and salt to railway crossings and tracks. Salt causes accelerated snowmelt, leaving pools of water in those areas. That water can then freeze beneath the rails, causing the rails to move and spread. The investigation found that no mechanical defects were observed and that the railway passed its latest inspection. Douglas Judson, a town councillor from nearby Fort Frances, remains frustrated with CN for not answering pleas to speak on the frequency of derailments in the area, as this was the 6th since 2013. The report also states that the train was traveling under the posted speed limit of 50 miles per hour at the time. Judson cites a news article which states the speed limit was revised for trains carrying dangerous goods just 2 days prior to the accident, from 25 to 50 miles per hour in non-metropolitan areas. In total, 33 cars went off the rails, with 29 carrying crude oil. CN claims they were able to clean up the vast majority of it before it seeped into the ground. To prevent similar situations in the future, CN will require crews working on one part of the rail line to inspect surrounding tracks as well. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
This week marked a partial return to normal for Atikokan Council as members, along with town staff, participated in their first in-person meeting since the pandemic began in March. Councillors are spaced out around the chambers, and staff members are now set up in smaller, isolated locations to accommodate for the increased use of the council chamber space. Mayor Dennis Brown says he adapted well to holding virtual meetings, but admits it's great to be back in a familiar setting, especially with a high-profile agenda item up for discussion.
We've all been kind of isolated ourselves. Whenever we had meetings, we had the Zoom meetings, and you had to be at home, or, well, I was in my office, but by myself. So it's not quite the same. That's the first time that's, in my lifetime that I've had to do that. It's much easier if we're in the same room at the same time. And this time, we're going to be discussing our final budget for 2020. And so that we figure that's a very important reason why we should be together.
Brown says they're also allowing the public to attend meetings. However, seating is much more limited due to social distancing. With Stage 3 now well underway across the Northwest, many of the region's town councils are looking at going back to in-person meetings. One of those communities is Terrace Bay, which hadn't had an in-person meeting since early March. Over time, the main office has begun to open up to provide services to the public with limitations, but for in-person meetings, a new venue will be needed, as the primary council chambers is a small boardroom which would not allow the council members, staff, or the public the ability to social distance. Mayor Jody Davis says they have found a larger area to meet, the former library, but there's still issues, including the requirement to wear a mask.
Most of council is not comfortable sitting in an office and trying to have a meeting wearing a mask and have discussion. So we're not sure how we're going to move forward in that. But we want to get back together to having, so we can have eye contact and expressions and having that openness versus Zoom. Zoom has worked very well under the situation, but there always is some problems with communications through the internet.
Davis says staff is looking into solutions for the issue. One idea is to have some form of physical barrier between attendees, but one that would allow them to see each other. The town of Nipigon has a new face at the council table after selecting Andy St. Jean to replace outgoing councillor Lavina Collins. St. Jean, or Crabby Andy as he's often known, was excited and happy to hear he had been selected to join council for the remainder of the term. He says while he does have some catching up to do on protocol and procedures, he's looking forward to improving the town by working alongside the rest of the council and staff.
I think the town is going in a really good direction, and I'm quite happy with how I see it. But I'd like to work with the council and have more stuff for kids, more stuff for adults to do, whether it's recreation. Looking at, I'd even like to see more residential being built here. Fill our schools a little bit more.
Coming up after the break, a 16-year-old resident of Atikokan is making a splash in the music industry after one of his videos hit 4 million views on YouTube. Years ago, it was thought that if you wish to show off your acting or musical talent, you had to move to places like Toronto, Vancouver, New York, or Los Angeles. But the advent of online platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube have allowed performers from all corners of the world to showcase their talent without leaving home. With well over 4 million views on one of his songs and a freshly inked deal with one of the largest music publishers in the world, one 16-year-old from Atikokan did just that. Adam Riley has the story.
You have me wrapped up around your finger.
Move over Shawn Mendes and beat it Justin Bieber. There is a new voice in Canadian music, and he hails from the Northwest. Atikokan's Alex Sampson is on his way to music stardom after first getting his start in a school talent show in grade 5. Over time, Alex honed his performing and lyrical talent, and after posting some videos online, an offer came in from a producer in the U.S.
David asked if we wanted to fly out to LA, maybe record some songs and do a photo shoot, and I said, yeah, let's do it. So we flew out to LA in August of last year, recorded a few songs. All That We Could Have Been was actually one of my first songs I recorded. And yeah, we ended up signing a little bit of a deal. After I came home, David said, hey, we have this guy, we'd love to film videos in your town, because David came down, he loved how it looked around here, and he thought, well, what better to start your career with video where you're from.
One of those videos is also one of his biggest hits, as All That We Could Have Been has garnered close to 4 million views on YouTube.
You gave me love that I could never feel before.
But now Alex is signed on with Sony ATV, the largest music publishing company in the world, which is helping him grow as a songwriter, arranging recording sessions, and promoting his music. The 16-year-old admits he is still getting used to this level of stardom and recounts one interaction with a fan at a Toronto hotel.
There's this guy sitting in the hallway, and I'm like, oh, that's a little weird. So I'm on my phone, he's like sitting right outside my door, so I don't know if that's like connected or not, if he knew what room I was in, but anyway, he stood up, and I'm on my phone looking, and all I hear is like, Alex? So I look up, and I'm like, me? And he's like, yo, I love you. And I was like, I love you more. And then I gave him like one of like this, whatever you call that. And then he said, can I have a picture? So we took a picture. He's great. We talked a bit. And yeah, it was really cool.
One thing that Alex says is definitely not slowing him down is COVID-19. And despite being used to in-person writing sessions, he has adapted to collaborating over Zoom. and is looking forward to performing those songs.
And I've been going in with writers, new writers, old writers, and I've just been writing songs like day after day after day. And some of the songs that I've written in quarantine have actually been some of my favorites I've done so far.
But Alex says he isn't stopping with just writing and performing music. He hopes to grow his skill set into the technical aspect of musical production and is even open to trying his hand at acting. But until then, he's going to keep his music, like his life, upbeat. Adam Riley, TBT News.
After years of consultations, planning delays, and funding applications, work has started on Terrace Bay's waterfront development project. Construction crews have already started work on the foundation of the main pavilion for the $3 million project, which will also include a connecting boardwalk that will run along the beach. The project will also see the facility connected to the power grid with newly installed power lines. Road enhancements near the entrance have also been completed, which included widening the road to allow access for motorhomes and trailers. Mayor Jody Davis says those improvements will play a key role in future developments in the area. He says he has big hopes for the future of the waterfront, which also serves as the eastern entrance to the National Marine Conservation Area and a jumping-off point to the Slate Islands Provincial Park.
Terrace Bay has within its township boundaries 7 sandy beaches and some pebble beaches. So we expect that there'll be a lot more kayaking down here, paddle boarding, and adventures out into Lake Superior. And also we'll eventually look in a few years' time as making a trailer park down here for tourists. So that's part of the continuing. But first we have to complete this.
Davis says this phase of the project is expected to be completed by December, meaning visitors and residents will be able to fully enjoy the new facility next summer. That's all for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.